Susie with Matt and Molly, she, again, like Carla, when it comes to Matt and Molly, she'll tend to really hurt their feelings. Because, you know, you can, with a sanguine child or a caloric child, you can actually very much say, look, this is a bad job. You did not do a good job here. You need to fix that. And a sanguine and a caloric and even a phlegmatic, they'll all fix it. The phlegmatic is like, okay, I want to get this right, and I want to please you. The phlegmatic wants to please you. The sanguine thinks, I'm going to have to get it right so I can move on to something else, so they'll take care of it. And the caloric wants to do what they need to do to, you know, be the best they can do, kind of thing. Although we don't want to say that anymore because it's postmodern. Susie, so Susie tends to collide with Matt and Molly, and she tends to hurt their feelings. And she has to, again, really work on the relationship and the heart aspect of that, try to understand how they feel. Matt and Molly can tend to feel like she's too quick to want to move on to something else, and they don't value how much time and effort they put into things. So she needs to stop and say, okay, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well, and she needs to identify with them. But she needs to help them, too, to not put so much focus and time and effort into that. Susie and Paul and Phoebe get along great. They just go right along with her wherever she goes. Again, not a lot of schoolwork getting done. So if you find yourself in a situation where you are Susie and you have other Sam and Sarah or Paul and Phoebe, you need to, just say, are we getting anything done? Susie needs to stay home, make dinner, and focus. So, just one support group, or maybe two.
Wow.
Okay, Marcia. All right, Marcia does, and this is true, Marcia's melancholics have a lot of problems in relationships. It's probably their hardest thing. If you're a melancholic, you probably could look back at your life and say, wow, I have a lot of problems in my relationships. And it's because you tend to be gloomy, you tend to be negative. And you need to realize that God made you to troubleshoot. He made you to be able to focus on details. He made you to be able to be the one that comes in and say, hey, if we change this to here, it will be perfect. So God didn't make a mistake when He made you. And a lot of times, melancholics can feel like somehow they were a mistake. And they're not. They're not at all. And so, when Marcia with Cody and Caroline, just to be careful to stand her ground, again, she'll usually let them have control, take it back, have control, take it back, because she'll think, oh, this is not the perfect situation, I'm not being the perfect mom. So there'll be a constant shift of power, just to really stand her ground with calorics. And with Sam and Sarah, she has to force herself to give a lot of praise. Sanguines thrive under praise. They do not thrive under negativity. So if a sanguine's around a negative person, all they'll think about is to get away from them. So a lot of times she'll see if there's a Marcia mom and a sanguine child, the sanguine child does not want to be around the mom. So the mom has to work on being positive. With Paul and Phoebe, to just appreciate them. Say, I'm so glad, you're just such a blessing. Marcia has to lower her expectations all around. An 8-year-old does not have, a freshman in high school, their writing is not going to be as good as when they're a senior in high school. And she needs to lavish more praise. Patty can abdicate with Cody and Caroline. And the real issue with Patty is she can tend to just let the other personalities pull her. Like I have never, it will stun me sometimes, if I ever watch a child foster parent, it is almost inevitably a phlegmatic, a Patty mom. And I'll be, oh my goodness, I can't believe that. And so especially with Cody and Caroline will sometimes take over and call the shots. And she has to be really careful of that. If she has a Sam and Sarah, she'll spend her whole life taking them from one place to another, just to appease them, to please them. If it's a Nat and a Molly child, she's always trying to, make them feel secure about themselves. And if they don't feel secure about themselves, then she feels like she's always just trying, one more thing. And so the problem with Patty is Patty needs to step back and say, okay, I'm the mom here, and God is going to show me how to run this homeschool, how to run this family. She needs to be very careful to not be lazy or back down, because she can tend to just rely on other people. Wait till your dad gets home, is Patty. Just wait till your dad gets home, and he'll take care of this. And so, things to remember. The most important thing when we're dealing with other personalities is to stop a minute and think, what is their perspective? Because a lot of times the reason we collide is that we're thinking one thing. We are assuming they are thinking the same way we are. So if you're task-oriented, you're thinking, why don't they just want to get the job done? And they're thinking, why doesn't my mom care about spending time with people? Why doesn't she care about how I feel about this? And so they're just coming from two completely different perspectives. And if you can put yourself in the shoes of the other person and think, okay, this is why this person feels this way, and then you need to be a servant to that person. They need to learn to be a servant to you. And the other thing is learn what motivates them. If you can learn to motivate, like if you can look at your child and say, okay, my child is motivated by fun and people. So you have to keep that perspective, and you can set them up for success. You know what, Sam, when you are done with this and this and this, we will go and we'll grab, the homeschooling party next door, and we'll all go to play miniature golf or something like that. I know, like for me personally, I have to motivate myself. I do everything early in the week, and then I treat myself if I finish everything, because that will motivate myself. My treats are always fun when they involve people, always. I didn't realize I did that until I prepared this talk, but that's how I get so much done. And so, a caloric, you can motivate them by saying, hey, here's the project we're doing. Use words like accomplish, get that, this is, and give them, delegate things to them. Hey, do you think you could help the children gather up their stuff and put, help the children? Yes. Am I in charge? A clerk will they'll always say to you, am I in charge? Yes, you're in charge. But if you can learn to motivate your children according to, like a phlegmatic will want to please you. So you can say to the phlegmatic, even in their teenage years, it would really make me happy, blah, blah, blah. If you say that to a sanguine, you're not really going to motivate them. Or a caloric, and then win their heart. Don't lose your teen's heart, and know that they are so different from you. And you have to keep that in mind with building relationships. My 5 children are all completely different. And there's, one of them that it is a challenge. And I said, and the Lord said to me one day, win his/her, I don't want to tell you who it is, heart. Win her heart, win his heart. Because we can get frustrated, and then we lose their heart. And our children need to know that we're for them. And to be for someone, we have to understand them. So a lot of times, like if you see a marriage with a caloric and a phlegmatic, a lot of times the phlegmatic will be afraid of the caloric, and they'll be passive aggressive. And then the caloric is so angry, but it's because the phlegmatic is afraid. And so the caloric has to tone down for the phlegmatic to not be afraid. Because as long as the phlegmatic isn't afraid of the caloric, they'll always be passive aggressive. Does that make sense? So, finally, set your children up for success. Teach them to work with their personalities. Like the Lord himself has taught me to go and take those things in me that are challenges, like, like I'm always going to be more impulsive than my husband. But I do little things with myself, like I never buy something. If I want to buy something like a camera or anything like that, I give myself like 4 weeks or 2 months. I just I say, okay, I'm praying about this, and I give myself it, and I keep praying, is this the right decision? Because I know I'm impulsive, and I want to honor the Lord. Now, so you like help your child see how they are. Like if your child's caloric, and you can say to them, I don't know if you realize that you just left a wake of destruction in your path. You just went through this situation with this person, this person, and you have casualties all around you. And you need to tell them that. And you need to say, God made you the leader that he called you to be, but you have to quit destroying people in the process. And then you can teach them how to work with who God made them. Does that make sense to you? And that's our goal. Our goal is not for our children to feel like failures. Like God made your child exactly the way they are. And God made you exactly the way they are. And if there's conflict, that's such a blessing. Because God works with conflict to make us more Christ-like. Does that make sense? So anyway, we're going to talk about more collisions, because my husband and I are going to talk about men and women communication, and that will be really fun. But so thank you all for your hearing.